Okay, get ready for a pretty amazing story that includes this judge, Judge Leslie Alden, putting me in jail for contempt of court as part of my divorce case. And she gave me a 1-year sentence. The next thing you know, I was sitting in a large holding cell in the Fairfax County, Virginia jail. Whoa. With a large crowd of inmates waiting to be processed, to include MS-13 gang members and members of the notorious R Street gang in Washington, D.C. I was still dressed in my business suit when I entered the holding cell.
Shame on you, Judge. Honorable my ass. You need to be disgraced. This is by far the craziest update of any story that I've ever reviewed on this channel ever. You guys remember this young man right here? He goes by the name of Ben Hart, much more affectionately known as the dancing Bitcoin father. He went viral about 2 or so months ago when his daughter uploaded a video talking about him being a deadbeat father who essentially just poof and left his family to become a world-renowned breakdancer. Well, the story from there was the father uploaded videos defending himself in a very lighthearted, jovial type of way, with the daughter going back and saying additional things, but really demonstrating this sort of brat-like behavior, this entitled-like behavior. The father responded back to say that you don't know the entirety of this story. He has just released a 50-minute video going over, according to him, information that even the kids don't know within this story. Now, I will say this before we get started. MT Army, pay very close attention to this story, because not only does it detail what can happen to men in the family court system should the woman that you once loved and decided to get on bended knee for utilizes the courts to exact the utmost revenge in her bitterness against you, which is help enabled by a corrupt law system, which is help enabled by corrupt judges of the thought that men ain't shit, or men should be punished for being a man, or a man should be punished for the patriarchy that they've exacted upon women for centuries. This has all of this within his story and much, much more. MT Army, time to mount up. Without further ado.
As some of you know who have been following this, my 24-year-old daughter, Maddie, has come out with another video telling the world that I abandoned the family.
Can you kind of explain a little bit of the controversy?
Of course. Okay, so for anybody who is listening who doesn't know me, which is probably most people because I'm literally not famous.
Millions of followers.
Unfortunately, though, I have become semi-famous literally just in like Republican hate circles. Most recently, I made a video about my dad because my dad abandoned my family when I was little, and he like went on to become a pretty famous breakdancer. And I made a video that was like very funny, tongue-in-cheek about that. But because my dad is like a huge Republican, huge Bitcoiner, like he's so bizarre, he has this sort of cultish following around him.
God.
And in the video that he posted, he's like wearing a Bitcoin t-shirt. He has an American flag behind him. Like he's like, oh, and then Elon Musk responded to my dad's video being like, you're awesome. Like you're an awesome dad. You're awesome. So that got all of the Elon Musk fans after me. It was sort of just a whole controversial moment in my life.
So this should be your screenplay, right?
What I find so interesting about her response is that she's removing accountability for the potential damage that she did to his career, right? He's an entrepreneur, a client-facing business. You're saying that he was a deadbeat father. You're posting that publicly, and you're saying that just Republicans or those that like Bitcoin who are on his side because he's quirky and he's funny, those are the ones that were hating on you. As if to say, how dare this man try to defend himself when his own family member, his own daughter, tried to out him. However, although she is getting a lot of hate for the way that she's choosing to do this, and I still think that it was wrong, I'm beginning to give her a bit of a pass because of the brainwashing that was obviously put on her from her mother. We're going to get into that in a quick second as well. So anyway, for the next several minutes of this video, Ben Hart continues to go over the backstory along with showing the receipts of him being involved in her childhood, and not only her childhood, but then the other children as well within the family.
Now, honestly, I thought I had overcome all this brainwashing of the kids by my ex-wife. I thought I had a great relationship with my daughters, especially since they became adults. Everything was going fine, I thought. Here we were last Christmas, 90 days ago. We all had a great time. I even thought I was getting along fine with my ex-wife, Betsy. Just last year, I swung by her house to pick up the kids for dinner. One of the kids was late, was out with a friend or something, so Betsy invited me to come into the house for a glass of wine. 3 of the kids were there, and we had a perfectly fine conversation, perfectly pleasant. Then the kids and I went out for dinner, and we all had a great time as usual. I thought the fact that Betsy had invited me into her house for a glass of wine was good progress. I was encouraged. But now this saga has taken a more negative turn, and all the indicators point to my ex-wife, Betsy, as the manipulator, as the well poisoner. In every video that Maddie puts out, she says I abandoned the family. And none of my daughters are talking to me right now. Only my son Peter is talking to me. So I think I need to tell a more complete story. A story that the kids have never heard before. I have really 2 goals with this video. Number 1, I think this information might help a lot of dads out there to avoid some of the mistakes that I've made. Whether you were recently divorced or not yet divorced. I say not yet divorced because about half of marriages end in divorce. And about 50% of married couples who are not yet divorced, well, their marriages are hanging by a thread. Goal number 2. My kids have never heard the whole story of what happened. They've heard one side from their mom, Betsy, my ex-wife. And I think it's been a very distorted story and a very incomplete story. Now, I'm not going to get into all that led to the divorce, who cheated on who and who cheated first. Let's just say there were a lot of factors that created a very unstable marriage. And we can get into that later if Betsy wants to. But I'm just going to talk here about what happened after the separation in 2004 and the divorce in 2005, because I made every mistake possible. I basically did not protect myself legally at all. First off, I gave Betsy 97% of the family assets and left myself with 3%, which actually left me with 0 because the 3% I had was quickly consumed by the lawyers. I did this because I knew I had a business and I could build back up. And of course I wanted the kids to feel secure, to let them know that they would have nothing to worry about financially. And money is just not something I've ever been very concerned about. I knew I could always make money. At any rate, after I posted my first video in response to Maddie's video, Betsy wrote me a long text message full of invective, asking why I was using exaggerated numbers in terms of what I paid for alimony, child support, college costs, and the other costs over the years. Then I had this text conversation with my oldest daughter, Tori. I said, "Hey Tori, give me a call when you get a chance." Tori answered, quote, "Hi Dad, I love you, but not right now. It's time for me to cut off communication. The video you posted was full of lies and just dragging Mom and Maddie 20 years after the fact, and you're just letting that happen. I'm distancing myself for the time being." End quote. I answered, quote, "My video was not full of lies. Maddie posted an attack on me that my client saw. I had no choice but to answer. I asked Maddie to take her video down. She refused because it was going viral. I was trending on TikTok. I asked her to post my video on her feed, which is an accurate video. She liked my video, thought it was funny, but declined. So I posted it on my feed because everyone had seen Maddie's video. So I had to answer. I answered in the nicest, low-key way possible. But then I started thinking, what are all these supposed lies that Tori is talking about? Tori is a good person. She must think there are lies in my video. And Maddie has put up at least 4 videos now where she continues to say that I abandoned the family, which I believe that I've proven is not true at all. And the problem is my kids have no clue what the real story is.
Imagine giving 97% of your assets away, having all of these different pictures of your involvement with the family. And I understand, over 20 years, having, 200 pictures maybe doesn't paint the entire or the complete story. but 97% of your assets, because you have so much of an abundance mindset. You're saying, here, I can start over again. But that was absolutely the wrong move to make. You guys are going to see exactly why here in a quick second. We often talk about on this channel the idea of having a scarcity mindset and what that can lead to. This is actually a negative of having too much of an abundance mindset and perhaps trusting way too much of the character of the person that you fell in love with and that you chose to marry versus the one that wants to exact revenge upon you. But he also touched on this poisoning well, right? The mother accepted 97% of the assets, but has also constructed information to poison the girls. It seems as though the young boy doesn't believe it as much, wants to remain out of it because the boy has more sympathy or empathy rather for being a man, whereas the girls are not designed to. So let's keep watching.
Now, what some people in the comments are saying is, why put all this on video for public viewing? Well, because the girls are not talking to me right now. And the only way to deliver information to them is to put it up on video.
Right.
Now, perhaps the so-called lie that Tori is referring to, and that Betsy is referring to, is the approximately $2 million lump sum that Betsy received at the end of the marriage, at the start of the divorce.
$2 million.
And the $5 million total that she and the kids received in the ensuing years, until each of the kids reached age 22. Now, these were estimates off the top of my head from memory. So I went back and reviewed the numbers, and it turns out that the real numbers are that I agreed to pay Betsy $1.8 million at the conclusion of the marriage, so $1.8 million at the start. However, I was $100,000 short of what I agreed to. More on that in a moment. And Betsy and the kids received a total of $4 million, a little bit more than $4 million, which includes the aforementioned $1.8 million and $618,000 for the kids' college funds and college costs.
Whoa.
Below, I linked to a PDF of the accounting.
For all my G's out there that are becoming high-value men and you say things like, well, I don't care if she was working at McDonald's as long as she treats me well. Well, if you get married to that young lady, this may be your financial situation. If you wanted to be a stay-at-home mother throughout that time, she is not earning skills. So at the point of divorce, you are expected to support her, even while she's porking other men. Total assets for the ex-wife at day of divorce. Now in 2005 money, $1.8 million. What did Ben get in 2005 money? $51,000. He had to pay her just for being alive up until she got remarried over 10 years later after they were divorced. Absolutely crazy and insane that he agreed to all of that. Now, what you're going to see on the right side of this page is all of the child support information. And if you add all that together, then you get the $4 million. But we're going to listen to him in a second here describe what really got him in the hot water during all of this generous giving to his ex-wife.
This accounting comes directly from a 2016 court case, one of many court battles I was in with Betsy. And anyone is free to dispute this accounting, but I think it's pretty accurate. So Betsy and the kids received a little bit more than $4 million, not the $5 million that I had estimated from memory in the first video. So that's my error. Now, of course, the counter to this is the money is good and all, but it doesn't make up for not having a full-time dad in the home. But remember, I lived just down the street from the kids in LaGrange, a bit more than a mile away. Then in 2011, we bought a house in Willowbrook, Illinois, which is an 8-minute drive away. Then in 2012, Betsy got remarried and moved about 1 hour north to a North Shore suburb. The kids were older by this point. Peter was in college. Tori was a senior in high school. Maddie was also in high school. Olivia was in middle school. I would make the 1 hour trip north at least once a week to see the kids, to see whoever wanted to hang out. Often that was just me and Peter hanging out. The girls typically wanted to hang with their friends. Teenage girls generally don't want to hang with their parents. They want to hang with their friends. But sometimes they would come out with me and Pete. And there really seemed to be no problem. Yes, there was 1 year when Tori would not come out and would not talk to me. That lasted a year. Then one day, Tori did come out. I said, great, you came out to lunch today, Tori. You haven't talked to me for a year. Has something changed? She said, no. 1 year of not talking to you is enough. Now I'm here. So I thought, cool. I've turned the corner with Tori. And it seems to have been 1,000% great with Tori ever since. for like the last 12 years or so. But here's the issue. Apparently they really do think that I abandoned the family. They think this because it took me more than 2 years to move to LaGrange, Illinois, where I could be just down the street. That's true. Maddie is right about that in a way. So let me go over the reasons why. And this is where the story really gets insane. Okay, so Betsy and I got separated in 2004, then divorced in 2005. Also, we were living in Virginia at that time, just outside of Washington, D.C. As part of the divorce agreement, I agreed to allow Betsy and the kids to move to the Chicago area. My plan was to follow Betsy and the kids there. This made quite a bit of sense because Betsy's family were there, and that's where Betsy is from. And I can work from anywhere. I'm a writer and a creative type. I create advertisements for a living. I can do that anywhere. So my plan was just to follow the kids from Virginia to Illinois. But I also agreed to just give Betsy essentially all the marital assets. I left the marriage with $0. Well, 3%. That became zero after paying all the lawyers. Now, of course, I agreed to all of this. And I told you, I made literally every mistake in a divorce that a guy can possibly make. I thought giving Betsy $1.8 million at the get-go and leaving myself with nothing would buy peace.
Yeah.
Wow.
Nope.
Was I wrong? And everyone told me I was absolutely insane to agree to this. But I wanted Betsy to be a stay-at-home mom, as she had been. We agreed that that would be best for the kids. I wanted the kids to have a mom at home when they came home from school. So I didn't want Betsy to have to work while the kids were still young.
He probably also didn't want to drag out the divorce any longer than what it needed or have to be. So he's probably just like, well, take all of this and I'll just make it back up again. And you can move back to Illinois and I'll just come right after.
And I wasn't worried about money. I was confident I could always make back the money. I grew up in Vermont and had kind of a hippie mindset. Money's never been my focus. I just do what I do and enough money just seems to roll in. What I did not count on was Betsy moving from Virginia to Illinois with the kids almost immediately. I couldn't move to Illinois immediately. She sold our house instantly, packed up the kids and left Virginia for Illinois, basically instantly. Yikes! I also did not predict that Betsy would issue subpoenas to all my clients to find out if I might be hiding money and assets from her.
Pay attention.
In other words, even though I agreed to give her everything, she didn't believe it.
Right.
She thought there was more money to be found. Money I was stashing away somewhere, or some hidden sources of income that she didn't know about. So she subpoenaed all of my clients. Her lawyers wanted to depose my clients. This caused me to lose most of my business. No client wants to be involved in a divorce legal proceeding or get deposed. So my clients ran for the tall grass fast. And by the way, she's doing this again. In the wake of this Maddie video flap, she's been phoning my clients again in hopes of torpedoing my current business.
Whoa.
Just like she was able to do in 2004 and 2005. So Betsy moved instantly from Virginia to Illinois during the separation, before the divorce was even completed. And I would make the trip to Illinois about once a month or every 6 weeks to see the kids. And the plan was to do this until I was in a financial position to be able to move to Illinois. And of course I was broke at that point. I had just let Betsy have all of the marital assets. Well, 97%. Now remember that $1.8 million that she was due at the conclusion of the marriage in 2005? Well, I was $100,000 short. I'd agreed to give her an additional $100,000 on top of all of our marital assets. Well, I wasn't able to pay it because remember she had destroyed my business with all of her subpoenas. So she and her attorneys filed what is called a show cause petition with the court. A show cause petition. What is a show cause petition? Well, this means I must prove that I am not in contempt of court. And if I am in contempt of court, meaning if I don't pay the $100,000, I could go to jail for contempt of court. So I walked into court for this show cause hearing. I had no legal representation at that point because I was out of money and couldn't pay lawyers anymore because Betsy had torpedoed my business with her subpoenas to all of my clients. This judge was a woman by the name of Judge Leslie Alden.
Oh.
I knew the instant that she looked at me that I was dead in the water.
Absolutely. Look at that
She had my
face.
tax returns and bank statements.
She looks like the feminist world boss. She looks like she created the bylaws of feminism. She looks like she has a cat collection of every single species of cat to ever existed. She looks like she don't shave under her armpits either. She looks half man, half amazing. Superman with gender reconstruction surgery. Shame on you for this Egon from Ghostbusters. Haircut in the front with a back mullet in the back. She looks like the Thor of strong and independent women. Let's proceed.
But that was before my clients went away due to all of Betsy's subpoenas that were arriving at their offices from Betsy's legal team. Judge Alden bellowed at me. "When will you pay Mrs. Hart the $100,000 you owe her, Mr. Hart?" she said from the bench. She sounded exactly like Judge Judy on TV. I answered, "As soon as I can, Your Honor. I need to build my business back up." Judge Alden asked me again, "When will you pay Mrs. Hart the $100,000 you owe her, Mr. Hart?" I answered, "Well, as soon as I can, Your Honor. I need to build my business back up." She asked me one more time, "Mr. Hart, when will you pay Mrs. Hart the $100,000 you owe her?" I answered, "I don't know what else to say except I'll pay her the money as soon as I can." Her next words were, "Bailiff, remand Mr. Hart to the custody of the sheriff." Now, I didn't care much about money when I let Betsy have all her stuff, but I sure could have used $100,000 right then. Lesson. It's easy to sing Kumbaya, give peace a chance, and to say you don't care about money until you actually need money to stay out of jail. The next thing you know, I was sitting in a large holding cell in the Fairfax County, Virginia jail with a large crowd of inmates waiting to be processed, to include MS-13 gang members and members of the notorious R Street gang in Washington, D.C. I was still dressed in my business suit when I entered the holding cell. This large holding cell contained about 40 other inmates. The jail door clanked behind me. An enormous 300-pound black guy called Big Daddy said to me, "Hey, what are you in here for with that nice suit, red tie, and shiny shoes?
Big Daddy.
Some kind of computer fraud, bank fraud or something?" I said, "Nah, I came up short on money I owe to my ex-wife." And I launched off into my story about what had just happened in court. Big Daddy, the 300-pound guy, called the other inmates over to hear the story. Big Daddy was clearly the dominant figure in the group. His voice was loud and booming. Plus, he was huge. So they all gathered round. Some of them looked like they were from the movie Menace to Society. "Hey guys, come over here and listen to this," Big Daddy said. "This story is great." I was sitting on a cement bench next to Big Daddy. We were all there for a few hours, because life in jail is not a fast-moving process. And they seemed to like me. They were all laughing, including the guy with the Nazi swastika tattoo on his face. They couldn't believe I agreed to pay my ex $1.8 million, plus $12,000 per month, and that I was still $100,000 short. Well, actually, I was more than $100,000 short. Judge Leslie Alden had also awarded Betsy attorney's fees, plus interest.
He has to pay for his own destruction. So after this contempt of court and being remanded to go into jail, she then orders money on top of that for him to pay to continue his own demise, to continue his own destruction, to pay for your wife's lawyers. On top of the $100K, mind you, he gave her the house, all of the assets. She sold the house. She has the money. But no, they need it now. And when daddy government says and the family law system says that you give it right now, no, you give it right now. And when you have a judge like that hates men, hates the fiber of your being, cannot stand you, thinks most things that are wrong in this world have to do with you, then this makes sense, because they live in this forever victimhood mentality, and he had to suffer because of it.
So the bill I owed her at this point was $148,000.
Damn!
The guy who looked like he was out of Menace to Society, he says, "What the F did you give her all that money for?
Right.
And leave yourself with nothing?"
Crazy.
Then Big Daddy said, "Here's what you need to do.
Sounds like a movie.
As soon as you get access to a phone, you need to call your ex. And in your sweetest possible voice, you need to say, 'Dear, sweetie, honey, I can't pay you any money sitting in here.'"
Happy wife, happy life, happy ex-wife. You can get out of jail so you don't have to talk to swastika guy as well as Big Daddy.
So let's make a deal. Then after a few hours in there,
Deal with the
one of
devil.
the guards calls out my name, and I exit the holding cell area with the guards. A guard put me in handcuffs and led me to the processing area. I was seated and handcuffed to a metal chair next to an officer who was inputting data into a computer. He pulled up my record. He looked at me and said, "Wow, what did you say to this judge to get 1 year in jail?"
What?
Wait, what? I asked. I'm here for a year? What? Judge Alden had never said anything about this. All she had said was, "Bailiff, remand Mr. Hart to the custody of the sheriff." And that was all she said. She never said anything about 1 year in jail. The officer read from the screen. "Well, that's what it says here. You're getting 1 year in jail for contempt of court. It says you owe $148,000 to your ex-wife. How did you get $148,000 behind on your child support?"
Right.
asked the officer. And I said, "Well, it's not really support. I paid my ex almost $1.7 million in assets that we had,
Right.
which was pretty much all our assets, but I still owe her $148,000 to bring the total to $1.8 million in cash up front at the get-go. I also agreed to pay her $12,000 per month in support. So all in all, I'm $148,000 short in terms of immediate cash due."
The first thing that I thought of is that this judge needs to be reported for her wrongdoing. So how can I use my platform in order to be able to help that? But apparently she is already retired. If the allegations are true, Lord only knows how many lives she destroyed with impunity from the judiciary system. Shame on you, Judge. Honorable my ass. You need to be disgraced. This is abuse initiated by a vindictive mother, yet enabled by a vindictive judge.
The officer looks at me. "Why the hell did you agree to all that?" he said. "Who is the judge in this case?" asked the officer. I answered, "Judge Leslie Alden." "Oh, that explains it," says the cop. "Yep, that judge, she really hates men." After the officer finished inputting my info and giving me an inmate number, I was taken in cuffs to an area and given an orange jumpsuit. I changed into that. The cops then took my business clothing, my watch, my phone, my wallet, and everything I had and put it all in a plastic bag for safekeeping, to be returned whenever I got out. I was then changed to 12 other inmates, and we were led to our cell block. My cellmate was a Cherokee Indian who said he had been convicted of 47 felonies, most recently attempted murder, but we got along fine. So it really looked like Judge Leslie Alden wanted to send me a message.
Yeah.
This was no white-collar work release type program for nonviolent offenders.
You were in jail.
She put me in the worst hole in Fairfax County, apparently for a year. And it was actually underground. There were no windows. There are about 1,800 inmates in the Fairfax County Jail. Evidently, the reason Judge Leslie Alden sentenced me only to 1 year there is that's the maximum amount of time that you can spend in county jail. Any longer, and they have to move you to a state prison facility. So I was there for the max. And the way our cell block was set up is there was a common area that's linked to 6 cells where we slept. We were locked out of our sleeping cells all day, so we were all in the common area. So the 12 inmates in our cell block were all in the same small, all-cement common area all day. And we spent all day just shooting the bull. That's all there is to do in jail. There was one toilet and a shower out in the open, in plain view of everyone. And you get used to it after a while. And I got along fine with everyone, even though most were there on serious, violent felonies. And we spent a lot of time talking about how to get me out of there. In fact, that was the main topic of conversation. We concluded that what I needed to do was write a letter to the judge and offer a payment plan. We talked about how much I would offer. I thought maybe $2,000 a month. They all thought that was way too much. Problem is, if you can't come up with that money every month, you'll be right back here,
right.
said the MS-13 guy
With
who was
more
covered
time.
in tattoos,
Right.
including tattoos on his face. Offer her $300 a month, said the white guy with a Nazi swastika tattoo on his neck who looked like Charles Manson.
Isn't it awesome, by the way, that this guy gets locked up and he's meeting all of these shadowy figures, 72 felonies here, attempted murder here, and they're all rallying together as men to help this guy out, because they even look at him and they're just like, you don't deserve to be here. I've done some crazy shit and I'm here. You don't deserve to be here. Let's all put our minds together to figure out how to get you out of here.
I settled on offering $1,000 per month to Judge Leslie Alden and then see what happens. Everyone in my cell block thought that was way too much. But I had to get out of there.
Yeah.
I also figured that Judge Alden isn't stupid. She must know I can't pay my ex anything sitting in here.
Right.
And my ex is supposed to be getting $12,000 a month. But I could not pay that sitting in there. So it was in everyone's interest to get me out of there pronto, so I could start making money again. The problem is I could not get a pen. We were not allowed to have anything that could be used as a weapon. After 3 days in there, I got a visit from the head of the prison, the warden himself. He came all the way down to the deepest, darkest hole in the prison to find out what I had done to end up here. Out of the 1,800 inmates, he wanted to talk to me, Ben Hart. I guess my file had landed on his desk, and I guess I was the talk of the prison, and he wanted to hear the story. So how did you get $148,000 behind on your child support, he asked. And why did the judge put you in here? The warden was looking at me through these bars in this small window in the steel door of our cell block. I explained that I had not gotten $148,000 behind on my child support. And then I went through all the basic details of how I paid her close to $1.7 million plus $12,000 a month of support, and all payments were made. But I had fallen $100,000 short on the $1.8 million I had agreed to. Then the judge tacked on another $48,000 for Betsy's attorney's fees and for interest. So I just wasn't able to come up with that final $100,000 plus $48,000. Who was the judge, the warden asked. Judge Leslie Alden, I answered. That explains it, said the warden. She's a real man-hater. Looks like you really pissed her off. He paused. He looked at his file of papers on me. Then he said, even though you've been sentenced here, I'm moving you to work release. Trouble is, we don't have any jobs for you that will help you pay off this $148,000 debt. The jobs we have pay $7 an hour. People who are here because they are behind on their child support pay their child support that way. But this is not going to help you get out of your situation. But let me see what I can do about this.
Think about being placed in jail because you are $148,000 in debt and you don't have your normal way of making money. So now you're relegated behind these bars to work for $7 an hour. How much you gonna work off in a year? Less than $20,000? By the time that you get out, is your business still even there? Someone please tell me, how is this fair?
I can't have you down here. About a day later, guards arrive, and they take me to the work release facility. This was low security, so I was able to get a pen and a piece of paper and write a letter to Judge Leslie Alden with my proposal to pay my ex $1,000 per month toward the $148,000 that I owed her, plus keep up with my other obligations under the divorce decree. I didn't hear anything back. I thought, welp, I guess I'm here for a year. I started to accommodate myself to this reality. It's amazing how humans can get used to almost any reality over time. Whatever your situation is becomes the new normal, the new baseline for existence. And I met some very interesting people in there, including a high-powered attorney who was in there on some kind of fraud. I became friends with a tall black kid named Alan. He was about 6'6" and was a martial arts expert. When he wanted to watch a particular TV show, he would stand in front of the TV in a martial arts pose so that no one would dare try to change the channel. And he and I would have contests to find out who is the, quote, better man. We would have push-up contests, chin-up contests, play ping-pong, Monopoly, and chess. Pretty much any game we could think of. And he was a good kid, but he was very rambunctious. He was maybe age 18 or 19. And I'm not sure what he was in there for, probably marijuana possession or something like that. And what he liked to do is practice his karate kicks and punches that would stop 1 inch from my nose. And I told him, Alan, stop doing that. See all these cameras around here? They're going to think you're violent. They're going to take you out of here and put you down in the hole. But Alan was a good kid, just had a lot of energy. And about half the guys, I would say at least half the guys in the work release program in the jail were there because they could not make child support or alimony payments.
Whoa, pay attention.
America's jails are filled with these guys, so-called deadbeat dads. And I did not realize until then that yes, We do indeed still have debtors' prisons in America. About 5 days had passed since I had sent my letter to Judge Leslie Alden, offering to pay Betsy $1,000 per month toward the $148,000 I owed her. Again, this would be an additional $1,000 per month on top of the $12,000 per month I was already obligated to pay under the divorce decree. I hadn't heard anything from Judge Alden. Didn't know if the judge even received my letter. I assumed not. But then one day around 5 p.m., I was on my bunk bed reading, and I heard a guard yell, "Hart! Benjamin Hart! Benjamin Hart! Is Benjamin Hart in here?" "Yeah, that's me," I said. "Come get your shit and get out of here," the guard said. So I went to the booth where they had my stuff. It was all in a plastic bag. My business suit was wrinkled and a mess, but everything was in there. My wallet, my watch, my phone. I called my girlfriend, Wanda, who would become my wife a couple months later. I figured any girlfriend who would put up with this is definitely wife material. I was broken in jail, but she had not run for the tall grass to disappear.
Right,
I told her I was being released and asked her if she could pick me up.
Okay.
I had been there for 8 days and 8 nights, and I got out of my orange jumpsuit and back into my wrinkled business suit. And the warden was there to meet me on my way out. He had a bemused look on his face. "You'd better write fast and write every day to keep up with your payments," he said. "I don't want to see you back here." "Thank you," I said. "Thank you for getting me out of the hole and up here. I'm not planning on coming back." The problem was, I still had to pay my ex $12,000 per month, plus now $1,000 per month, for a total of $13,000 per month. This was no joke, especially since I had no business anymore. All my clients were gone. I left jail with $5 in the bank, no clients, and no business. Wanda was my girlfriend. I had met her at a karaoke bar. She's an immigrant from Laos.
Hello! Shout out to the Passport Bros. You know, one thing that the daughter did say that I think that was accurate in her past videos is that the dad is quirky. You gotta think after the situation, after just getting out of jail, after a divorce, he got married several months later, seemingly setting yourself up for that potential outcome. Again, to me, that is quirky as hell behavior. After going through something like that, I'm like, all right, marriage ain't for me. If I was to divorce from Wanda, I might get Judge Leslie Alden yet again. He's his own man. I'm just saying I wouldn't do that. Let's keep going.
I call her my best girl. After jail, Wanda and I existed by maxing out my credit cards and Wanda's credit cards to the tune of $65,000.
Oh, she's a writer.
While I rebuilt.
She's a writer.
I needed to figure out a business that did not involve having clients, that Betsy could subpoena and depose.
Whoa.
So I developed an online marketing education business.
Okay.
I charged people $38 per month for my online marketing seminars. And I got the business up to about 1,000 students pretty quickly. By April of 2007, I thought I was financially strong enough to move to Illinois. Oh, and that $1,000 per month extra, additional, that I was supposed to pay toward my $148,000 debt, well, that was temporary. To stay out of jail, I had to promise to Judge Alden that I would pay it all off in 24 months, or it would be back in the slammer for me. And by the way, when I say I paid Betsy $12,000 per month, that's kind of shorthand. Here's where that number comes from, because Betsy is challenging this number. Well, here's what it was. $4,000 per month for alimony, $4,600 per month for child support until age 22 for each child, $800 per month for the college fund, $1,000 per month for life insurance, $400 per month toward Betsy's health insurance, $1,000 per month for health insurance for the kids, and there were about $1,000 in monthly costs for out-of-pocket medical expenses. Medical costs, by the way, included not just the usual things that we consider to be medical costs, things like broken leg or need some stitches, have a fever, things like that. These out-of-pocket medical costs also included counseling and therapy sessions for the kids, eyeglasses, contact lenses, braces, and so forth. And these were not covered by insurance. Betsy also seemed to like to rack up extra unnecessary medical costs just to stick it to me. Constantly taking the kids to doctors who were out of network, so weren't covered by insurance.
Betsy is
and we
toxic.
actually had a lawsuit over this in 2016. So there was that aspect. So it was really more than $12,000 per month for support. So Wanda and I were able to move out there in April of 2007. We move into the Homestead Inn in Lombard, Illinois, while we look for a place to live in LaGrange near the kids. Betsy is warning me in emails and frantic text messages not to move there. She says I'll regret it if I do.
Wow.
Then one Saturday, I think it was the second Saturday we were there, I swing by the house to pick up the kids. We go to breakfast and putt-putt golf. After breakfast, Tori did not want to go to putt-putt golf. She wanted to be dropped off at home. So I dropped her off at home. It was then me, Pete, Maddie, and Olivia at putt-putt golf. And I bring them home to Betsy's house. When I arrive, Betsy is standing there. I get out of the car. Betsy walks over to talk to me. She shows me her iPod. iPods were a big thing in 2007. She informs me that she's been recording all of our conversations, including when I guess I called her a bunch of names. And we'd been having a lot of nasty conversations. I didn't really know what might be on that iPod. And as she was holding the iPod into my face, I guess to record what was happening, I quickly snatched the iPod out of her hand and headed for the car. Betsy then jumped on my back as I was trying to get into the car, and I managed to shake her off. But she dives into the car after me and is sprawled across my lap trying to get the iPod. I toss her out of the car as I'm taking off. And this is important because Maddie believes, and I'll quote Maddie's text message just the other day on this. Maddie says about her video that, quote, I could have made you look so much worse. I didn't post anything about when you forced mom into the car and drove away with her, end quote. I didn't force Betsy into the car. She jumped on my back to try to get the iPod and followed me into the car. Why would I try to force Betsy into the car?
Right.
I'm trying to get away from Betsy with the iPod. But this is the story that the kids have been told by Betsy. And they probably saw some commotion, some sort of struggle, which was Betsy on my back trying to get the iPod and following me into the car. And on the way back to the homestead, I throw the iPod out the window.
This portion of the story right here actually reminds me of the Jonathan Majors incident. You see Jonathan Majors get out the car. There's a struggle. He's trying to put her back in the car and then ends up running away with her chasing behind. Inevitably, he gets found guilty for domestic violence. It's funny how a couple of quick changes of the narrative can result into a man being guilty for domestic assault. But the daughter's quest to be a victim, which is supported by the toxicity embedded in the mother, now all of a sudden he hits women, and I could have talked about you so much more negatively in my post, Dad. The abuse of men in the family court system and the financial abuse of men. Listen, your ex-wife is a gold digger. You get accused of being an abandoned father. Why is she not being accused of being a gold digger? A gold digger that sports turning her children against the father.
And I'm told by my lawyer later that that was a big mistake because surreptitious recording of conversations is a crime in Illinois. Meanwhile, Betsy went to the police in Western Springs and filed a domestic violence charge against me. She also filed a charge for theft of the iPod. Wanda and I went to a restaurant called Miller's Pub, which is right next to the homestead where we were staying, and we saw the police show up. We watch. After the police leave, we go to our room quickly to get all our stuff. The front desk tells me the police are looking for me. So we decide to drive to Maryland where Wanda's family lives and regroup. We stayed there until December. We were basically in hiding. I needed time to build up my internet business so I could return to Illinois and hire lawyers. And I stopped paying Betsy any support for a while I built up my finances. By December, I felt I had the finances to be able to pay off Betsy, all the back support, plus hire a lawyer. The problem, of course, was that I knew that if I showed up in Illinois, I would be arrested. There was a warrant out for my arrest. So Wanda and I snuck back into Illinois. I hired a lawyer. Then I turned myself in, spent the night in jail, got out on bond by putting up $300, and began a series of 6-month legal proceedings. The judge and the prosecutors in this case said my snatching of the iPod out of Betsy's hand was technically assault and theft. So in exchange for no trial and no conviction on the matter, I agreed with the court to attend some conflict de-escalation classes and agree to pay Betsy $120 for the iPod. Meanwhile, Betsy had obtained a protective order and had filed a motion to prevent visitation. Here is Betsy's motion to prevent visitation. It's actually titled Motion to Strike Petitioner's Petition for Visitation and Motion for Sanctions. This all cost me another $30,000 or so to overcome. Betsy's goal here was for me not to be able to see the kids at all.
Right.
Ever. And the kids, of course, had no understanding that all this was going on.
Right.
To them, it looked like I had abandoned them. And to them, it looked like some scuffle had occurred between me and Betsy on the street outside her house. And Betsy, I guess, told them I was trying to drag Betsy into the car. I guess for the purpose of kidnapping her? What sense does that make? The kids, of course, had little or no clue about all these legal battles going on. How I was both fighting financially and in the courts for more than 2 years to reestablish my right as a dad to have a relationship with my kids. I had no idea that Betsy would take every legal step imaginable to prevent me from moving to Illinois. And I ultimately overcame all of this. But it is easy to see why the girls think their dad abandoned the family. They had no idea all this was going on. And who knows what Betsy was telling them at home. The family law court in Chicago rejected Betsy's motion to prevent visitation, also threw out her protective order. In December of 2007, Wanda and I moved into a rental property in LaGrange, a bit more than a mile down the street. I then saw the kids at least once a week, often more. I saw my son Peter throughout the week. I generally saw the girls once a week. And of course I was available anytime they wanted to hang out. And as I said, in 2011, Wanda and I bought a house in Willowbrook, Illinois, which is an 8-minute drive from the kids. It's a nice house, has a swimming pool, with a water slide. But hostilities from Betsy were still high. And then she got remarried in 2012, and she moved 1 hour north. And the kids were older by this point. Pete was in college, attending Columbia College in downtown Chicago. Tori was a senior in high school, I think. Maddie was also in high school. Olivia was in middle school at that point. And at least once a week, I would make the trip 1 hour north to see the kids. Well, whoever wanted to hang out. I would often swing by Columbia College in downtown Chicago to pick up Peter. We would then head up the North Shore to pick up the girls, or whichever girls wanted to hang out. The girls were teenagers by this point. They often didn't want to hang out with their dad. They preferred to hang out with their friends. But sometimes they did go to breakfast, lunch, dinner, and or to a movie that we were going to. Everyone was pretty much free to do what they wanted to do. Hang out with me and Pete, or not. At any rate, as the years passed, I thought all the nastiness had pretty much dissipated. As I said, Betsy got remarried in 2012, married a cancer research doctor who founded and runs a cancer research institute that's affiliated with Northwestern University. They live in a $2.2 million house. She really has nothing to still be angry about. For years now, I thought we had pretty much gotten past all of this nastiness and bad feeling. Yes, 2005 through 2007 was rough, and really through 2008. But all that just seems so long ago to me now. And as I said, just last year, Betsy invited me into her house for a glass of wine while I waited for one of the girls to arrive. Betsy said there's no need for you to sit in the driveway, just come on in. And we had a pleasant conversation. Last year, Betsy and I were in Boulder, Colorado for my youngest daughter Olivia's graduation from the University of Colorado. And we had a very good time. Hung out with Olivia, joked about this and that, joked about a woman who wanted us to pay $750 each to attend her daughter's graduation party. And I guess Betsy paid the woman $300 for the party. And I'm like, are you kidding? I paid $0. I just showed up. Who charges people to attend their daughter's graduation party? So Betsy and I were joking about that while sipping wine at this party. But honestly, everything seemed fine between us until Maddie launched her video barrage against me a few weeks ago, which was really just out of the blue, out of nowhere. So I had to answer that. Just this past Christmas, we were all having a great time, laughing and joking at dinner. But now the girls apparently have rallied around Maddie. I don't see why anybody needs to take sides. Peter's staying out of it. He says he's not following it, doesn't even really know what's going on. Of course he knows what's going on, but he just wants to stay out of it. So that's basically where things are at the moment. I'm not sure why all this bad feeling is suddenly coming out now. There's really no need for all this negative energy. There never was a need for it. My hope is for everything to go back to the way it was this past Christmas, with everyone happy and getting along. And the way it has been for, well, since 2008 or so.
All right. That boy, he's nasty with it. Look, hey. All right. Let me stop the video right here, guys. Again, I'll leave a link to this down in the description box down below in case you want to see this entirety of this whole video without my comments. Also on the original video, he's responding to some of the comments as well. So you can see some additional context that goes along with this. But final thoughts. Stories like this are the reason why I tell the people that watch me that If you view your father's involvement in your life as being abandoned, right? Reach out to him. Have a conversation with him. There's always two sides to every story, at least three, if the truth is somewhere between his and her story. But here's the thing with his situation, I believe him. He's showing the documentation. He's showing the numbers. He's putting a lot of logic into some of these situations. Like, why would he be trying to kidnap her? And honestly, after watching this, I think that the daughter is getting a lot of the hate, but a lot of that hate should be transposed to the mother, should be transposed to the corrupt family court system, should be transposed to the corrupt judge. A year for contempt of court to place him somewhere where he'll be unable to pay something off, to add an extra $50,000 on to being able to pay something off that wasn't really alimony, it wasn't really child support, it was just him agreeing to already 97% of his assets. But because he overestimated with his abundance ass mindset how much that the lawyer or the court fees were, you guys are going to send him to prison? This man demonstrates an unreasonable, in my opinion, an unreasonable amount of resilience and patience. I don't even know if I'd have all of this after everything that he's been through. And I understand that it was over 15 years ago that he had gone through all of that. But this guy right here needs a round of applause for going through all of this and still maintaining positivity at the end of this. I told y'all this was going to be the craziest update regarding one of the stories that we've gone over on this channel before. Hopefully you guys are still with me, and hopefully you guys are taking notes at the injustices within the family court system as it refers to men. This story is not a dime a dozen. I get emails from men that are going through situations similar to this, and I get comments in my comment box of men going through stories similar to this. What contract are you going to sign up for without understanding what can happen to you at the end of that contract when you choose to exit, or when the exit is chosen for you? This is the marriage contract. Do understand, if you utilize this as a tool within your life, what can happen if you decide, or if she decides, to go separate ways. Shout out to Ben Hart. You a G. Questions, comments, concerns. Y'all already know what to do. MediocreTutorialsandReviews@gmail.com. Guys, write down in the comment box down below. Let's have a conversation regarding this. Let's light up the comments, all right? Until next time, YouTube. Peace.